Speak into
Recording
your
in
microphones.
progress.
Make sure your microphone's on and speak into your microphone. All right. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you and call to order the April 9th Port Orchard City Council meeting. And I'd also like to remind us of our guiding principles and the actions we're about to take this evening. Are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? And is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a published agenda this evening. Are there any proposed amendments to this evening's agenda? Mr. Morrissey.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would propose that we amend the consent agenda, pulling out items C and D and moving them to business.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
So if I hear the motion correctly, then it is to move consent items C and D and make them business items D and E. And is that correct?
Correct.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, those items have been moved. Are there any other proposed amendments to this evening's agenda? Councilmember Rosepepe.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Seconded.
A motion by Councilmember Rosepepe, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the amended agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for this evening. We're to our first citizen comment period, and that is for any items on this evening's agenda. We have a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting for all other items. Is there anyone, Mr. Kambich, you here on an agenda item?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Anybody online? You would use the, and I don't see anyone on, oh, there's 5 participants. Brandy, you just use the raise your hand feature and staff would bring you into the meeting. Okay. All right. Seeing none, we will close the first citizen comment period. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I approve to, sorry, not feeling so great. I approve to approve the consent agenda as
As amended, actually.
as amended. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Warden, a second by Councilmember Rosepepe to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. We have no public hearing this evening. We're on to our business items. First of which is item A, adoption of a resolution approving the purchase of furniture for the second and third floors of City Hall from One Workspace, formerly Open Square, for the City Hall renovations. I need to enunciate. And Mr. Ryan, this is you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. As you recall, we were previously in front of you for the purchase of the furniture for floor 1 of the police station. That pre-authorization was for $150,000, and that came in actual was just under approximately at $115,000, so there was a bit of a savings. This next purchase is still with One, I'm sorry, the name of the company is One Workspace. This is for the remaining furniture for floors 2 and 3. This would conclude all purchases needed for the remodel. The total price is at $43,590.42. This is part of a cooperative purchasing agreement through Sourcewell, and would again complete the furniture need for the City Hall remodel. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Terneri.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of the furniture for the City Hall renovations, floors 2 and 3, project from vendor One Workspace.
Second.
By Councilmember Terneri, a second by Councilmember Fenton. And I just want to correct this. While we have additional authority in that first purchase order of the police department, I think there are a couple of odds and ends that are going to be a few $1,000s that we've asked for a quote on. But so this should address all of the needs on the second and third floor. which are primarily the court and then the customer service area, those 3 workspaces in the finance area is what this is, addresses the furniture needs. Largely everybody else is, we're repurposing the furniture that we have when we move back in. So Councilmember Morrissey?
Yeah, I just have a question because I did notice it said we may need a budget amendment. Where are we at within budget on this?
Noah's not here tonight, but those of us on the Finance Committee have seen that sales tax is tracking ahead of budget. So that
Yeah, I wasn't worried that we were going to move out. I just didn't know where we're at compared to budget
we are tracking very well and are ahead in
on this
sales.
project.
This project, we aren't likely, I don't want to speak for Noah, we are likely not capitalizing furniture and using the sources
depreciation.
for the we have funds for the construction. We're likely not using these. These funds are likely coming from other sources like our general fund dollars and sales tax dollars, which have been trending ahead of plan. But Noah will be bringing that back at a future date. We usually do 2 or 3 budget amendments throughout the year, and he'll group them all together and be able to definitively tell you what source and what funds, but we have cash available to pay for this. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
So just to piggyback on that, for the overall project, at least for the furniture procurement, it came in higher than what we thought it was going to be initially.
No.
No? Okay, that's I think that's what we were getting at was.
Yeah.
Well, I think the original one was we didn't budget for furniture originally.
We forgot about that.
Right.
That's really what happened is we went out to bid and it was never our intention to put furniture into the construction budget because it's not a capital improvement. And so we went out to bid, started doing construction work. The police department was about halfway done and the police said, "What about our furniture?" And we all went, "Oh yeah, we were supposed to." We met with that vendor. We never finished that agreement. And so we were scrambling. This one we've been much more proactive at. We're going to, but we, in the perfect world, we would have gotten these quotes and included them in our budget process last year. It just fell through the cracks.
Yeah, I agree that the Finance Committee, I think, has been very diligent about tracking that and that we are ahead of collection. So I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
So likely it's coming from that source,
Right.
the additional sales tax dollars, but that's for Noah to make, he'll talk to the Finance Committee about first, and then it'll come to the full council. The questions? All right, you'll be voting on the approval of a resolution for the purchase of office furniture for the 2nd and 3rd floors of City Hall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. We appreciate having furniture when we move back in. All right, we're back to business item B now, adoption of a resolution certifying emergency situation and waiving procurement for the repair work of the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project. Mr. Ryan, this is you again.
Thank you again. So adoption of the resolution emergency situation and for procurement purposes. This is relating to Marina Pump Station. During construction, a compromised portion of the 18-inch high-pressure sewer line that carries all sewer for the city of Port Orchard to the waste treatment facility was found to be compromised and not built to specifications as recorded in 1982. Instead of having restrained bolts at the joints, it was just a bell-end pipe, and there was a poured-in-place thrust block with a lot of concrete, and that was not supposed to be there. This left our high-pressure sewer line compromised, posing a significant risk to the infrastructure integrity and also environmental hazards. Immediate action was imperative to prevent potential risk to public health and the environment. The city, its contractor, and engineering consultants worked with relevant authorities to classify the situation as an emergency necessitating swift action. This included a meeting with the Department of Ecology, who came from all parts of the state to meet us on site, who made the case for us to through to Department of Environmental Protection Agency. Due to the urgency of the situation, procurement procedures were waived by the mayor and emergency repair was commenced. The work completed by Stellar J Corporation included various tasks to address the compromised sewer main. The mayor's declaration of emergency and the subsequent actions are in accordance with the relevant authorities and the city procurement policies. The estimated cost of the emergency repairs exceeds the mayor's designated authority, requiring council approval. A resolution is proposed to certify the emergency situation and authorize the mayor to execute a change order with Stellar J Corporation for the emergency purchase not to exceed $300,000, including applicable taxes. I do also want to say that we do not have the final dollar amount tonight because we are working with our engineer of record. We are reviewing the scope of work, and we are going to sharpen our pencil to make sure that any work that was done was not part of the original scope. So we will expect a dramatic cost to go down. I also want to note that this project could have been extended up to 5 to 6 weeks if the requirement to keep an American-made bypass valve in place. Because of this declared emergency, the Department of Ecology and EPA allowed us to call this de minimis and able to do the work this week. So it was a big team effort, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Fenton.
I move to adopt a resolution certifying the emergency situation pertaining to the Marina Pump Station improvement and ratifying all action taken consistent with the emergency situation.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fenton, a second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. And we likely would have paid about $500,000 in demobilization, standby, and then remobilization by the contractor had they pulled off the project if we would have delayed them 5 or 6 weeks. So this was a huge win to be able to get Ecology to bless these improvements the way they did, and the emergency order that I made was a big part of it. So, and the repairs went exactly to plan. I think I shared that email with you when they were doing some of that work down there. So, and well, I think we'll see a reduction, but I don't know about massive. But I think we'll see. But we should see a reduction because some of the bypass work was to be done later in the project, not at this stage. And so, if the elements were already in there, we shouldn't have to pay for them twice. And so that's what we're reviewing with the engineer of record and the contractor. So this is probably the worst case scenario, and it'll likely be less than this. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
Mayor, this is kind of off on a tangent, but I am curious, Dennis, this is the second major project that at least I've been kind of partly involved in where as-builts that were 60 years ago, 40 years ago, I'm thinking of Tremont also, that, the as-builts were
Not accurate.
not accurate. How are we preventing that for the city council 30, 40 years from now?
That is a great question, and I have a great answer. The commitment that this city made to asset management to record, document, and keep that history is going to pay dividends for us in the future.
Okay.
And you've added to our staff to have more inspectors so that we can put our eyes on things before they get buried. I mean, if back in the day, I don't know what we had for inspectors in public works, but obviously they didn't look at this joint in the pipe and it got buried and...
No, I just, I was curious with, the fact that asset management, the fact that we're digitizing all of our records, et cetera. I just didn't know, that we were tracking this to make sure we leave a better legacy than our brethren did.
Yeah, that's our goal. Councilmember Diener, go ahead.
So I just wanted to thank staff for keeping us informed and managing the situation really well. I think it was an important one to manage well. And I'm following everything except for, Dennis, when you mentioned that you wanted to make sure that they hadn't gone out of scope. Could you explain that a little bit more? I wasn't sure entirely what you
I'm
meant.
sorry. So I was addressing, the bypass valve that we did with the hot tap, that was slated to be part of the project. That was a necessity was anticipated in June or July. The contractor does not have to do that work now because the
I
work
see.
is done.
Okay.
So that apart, all of our steel in this project has to be American-made.
Yeah.
And there wasn't an American-made hot tap available. So that would have been the delay, waiting for that American-made part
Yeah.
to be manufactured. So there was a foreign manufactured part readily available. And so we made the decision whether, it was unknown whether we were going to have to do this work twice, which still would have been better than the delay. And so we told a very good, we took ecology out there, showed them the problem, and we were able to get a waiver of that American. So we're able to leave that foreign-made part that required a waiver, and we go through a process, and so we were able to get that approved, and now that foreign-made part doesn't have to be removed, and the only way to remove it is to install a second one farther up line and then replace all this pipe down here unnecessarily. But if that was the federal rules, that was going to be the federal rules, but we got a waiver of it. Councilmember Warden?
Councilmember Jay, my experience is 60 years ago were hand drawings. They don't have as-built, dating back that far on too many things, So moving forward, we'd have those a little more accurate. But this did definitely piqued my interest, and so I spoke to this on the phone and asked him, like, how are you not potholing and locating, these pipes and whatnot? And he said that that's when he mentioned the thrust block that was poured over there, because I was really confused on how they get that far of alignment, that they would hit a pipe and cause that kind of damage, but
Wasn't hitting the pipe.
definitely makes sense. It wasn't the pipe, it was the thrust block that moved the pipe that, yeah.
Flush block that shouldn't have been there. It should have been mechanically, the as-bills were mechanical restraints.
Sure.
And so we had this big block of concrete that wasn't supposed to be there. And so that's all fill down there. And so when they're digging, have you ever dug in sand? And when you dig in sand, things shift a little bit, and this big piece of concrete that wasn't supposed to be there started moving. That was
Could
holding.
have been a lot more costly. So.
It could have been a
Fortunate-
environmental
fortunate
disaster.
It was,
Yeah.
what it was.
Yep. It all worked out at the end of the day.
And I would note, so this is so looking ahead, as we design our other pump stations and do this work, everything's gonna have a bypass valve in the future.
All right. Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Morrissey.
As long as all the official questions are out. Mine is more, I don't know who writes our resolutions, but you help me with my family at home. You use the word effectuate, so whoever that is, great job. I want it home.
All right. We'll be voting on the adoption of a resolution certifying the emergency situation and waiving procurement for repair work for the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has passed. We're to item C, which is the approval of the March 26th regular council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Rosepepe.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Seconded.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Rosepepe, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the March 26th council meeting minutes. And I'll have an extension, or not an extension,
An abstention.
abstention, wow.
By me?
From Councilmember Diener. So, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention by Councilmember Diener. All right, we're to our new business item D, which was consent item C, which is the approval of amendment number 5 to contract number 002-21 with At Work Commercial Enterprises LLC for the treatment and landscaping maintenance. Mr. Ryan, this is you.
So, good evening again. I am probably going to merge these two topics of the next agenda item just for the ease of understanding. So these contracts with At Work Contracting is, we have the Tremont Corridor, which is a highly desired level of service that the city has as an entryway to the city. And the next is various areas along the Bay Street pathway and our parks down there. I do want to point out that it's a little bit easier to quantify for a quick lowdown, but So the various area portion, it consists of 432 annual trips to the areas that are listed in the contract. So on average, that hourly, that site visit is $80.31 per visit. I looked up the state of Washington's
Which
prevailing.
is how many employees they're bringing, 2 or 3 employees?
Yeah, so it's broken out, so you can estimate that it's 1 to 4 employees for those various areas. You'll see the dramatic increase. So looking at the Washington state prevailing wage, which we're required to require our contractors to pay for all city projects, it is barely above minimum wage. So it is a lower paying wage that those employees are receiving.
And about $16 and change, Dennis?
Yeah, that's correct. It looked like it was just updated, and the new rate was $16.43, which I'm not sure if that's the current minimum wage, but it's right there. Sometimes Illinois is a little bit behind. So, but that was off the website today. If you consider that with our employees, our personnel has a, if we consider the highest step of personnel position pays with benefits, it's $76.68. And that doesn't consider the vehicles that the city would drive either. So we use FEMA rates for our vehicles. Our average vehicle costs approximately $16.68 per vehicle. So, and I have to back up, that $76.68 was for the vehicle and for the employee with benefits. So that's comparable. 1 hour of our time is what they spend with 2 to 3 people, maybe 4 sometimes per visit. So just to put it in that scale. So I'm pulling up the resolution here. That dollar amount not to exceed is for 1 year, that 32,000, or the first one was, sorry, my computer's a little bit behind here. That total amount is, so the base total Schedule A was $34,696.19 before tax. That amount is for the 1 year period. When you saw that total amount, those are the previous years that have already expired. So this is just continuing each of those contracts for an additional year.
Is it 1 year or 2 years?
It's 1 year. It's December 2024 that they would twilight. I'm happy to answer any questions as they arise. If there's specific details you want to know about these contracts, it is a savings for the city. The city did work with our bargaining groups for this work to be done by contractors, and that's a big process to do. So
What Dennis is alluding to there, for us to take public work out of our union's hands, we have to get their permission to move this into, put it out in the private sector. And so we did that, right after Tremont was done. And part of the challenges with Tremont too, it takes multiple people to be out there because of traffic, the amount of traffic that we have there, and to be, work safely in that work environment. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute amendment number 5 to agreement number C002-21 with At Works Commercial Enterprise LLC for Tremont landscaping maintenance.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Rosa Pepe, a second by Councilmember Diener. Are there other questions or comments?
I just have one other question.
certainly.
Oh, because I'm looking at all the figures, and then did you say it was 32,000? Are you saying a year or for them to come out?
That's correct.
The annualized number, yes,
And, okay.
that's correct.
And that's,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
and that's just on one of the two, right? I know we're voting on
Yes.
one. So we have the 32,000, I believe, and 34,000, correct?
That's correct.
When we get to the next one. And I understand I pulled them both out, so we got to do them separately. But I think part of my comments is I wanted to hear some of that information, Dennis, so I appreciate you bringing that forward to us. Because I didn't read it in the summary. I'm sitting there preparing for my meeting thinking, I want to have a parks conversation on Friday at our retreat, and I didn't want to move on this without knowing kind of where we all sat and what we kind of thought that might look like, because if we could repurpose these funds to help offset an FTE, if we're having those conversations, that's kind of where my head was going on all this. And I understand that there are other deciding factors that influence how and why we decided to outsource this, but that's kind of where I was at.
And just to share, I plan to advocate for, and some of you have put that on there, additional park staff, because we need additional park staff, but that's for the work that we're doing that are within our bargaining group. And I believe there's tremendous value in this contract and having it. I mean, there's tremendous labor savings in doing this. And when we put this out to bid and got permission, our union folks really didn't want to do this work, particular out on Tremont at that time. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
Two things. One is I would like to thank our union for working with us too, which is a savings for us. My question, and I'm not sure who can answer this, is what type of project does prevailing wage kick in on a contract?
All of our public work.
That's correct.
Okay, so how does this at minimum wage advise prevailing wage, or is this the prevailing wage because it's a?
Because for this sector,
Yep.
the prevailing wage isn't very far from minimum wage.
That's what I was
this-
curious
because it's
on this
industry
sector. Okay,
sectors.
that's what I was just getting.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's the prevailing wage rate scale is there's probably 40 different journeyman level,
Right.
journey person level job skills on the state website, and they're responsible. They do an intent to pay affidavit that requires them to pay their employees prevailing wage.
Thank you very much.
And,
Councilmember-
oh, sorry.
Councilmember Diener, and then I'll call.
I just was going to say, when I was looking through this, the parks, mentioning of parks maintenance kind of grabbed me too, especially in the context of what I think we're talking about on Friday. And I've also wrestled with the idea that if you have a consultant or a contractor who's doing work, let's say reviewing permits, at some point, the union might say you need to get that position on staff. Is there a tripping point for us with the union on this, where we would be required to get those people on staff?
I believe that if we put this back in the union and wanted to put it back out into private, we'd have to get their permission again. But I don't know of any threshold in this contract. I mean, this is the second company we've dealt with. The first time we put it out to bid, it was a local company, and we need to take low bid. And the second time we put it out, we ended up with this particular company here. But I'll defer to Charlie.
I likewise am not aware, but to the extent that was a question the council was interested in exploring, we would want to do that in a closed session, as that deals with bargaining strategy, with Debbie present. So we absolutely could discuss that if you'd like, in that setting.
I guess I would just say, if you look at it and it's a concern, then we ought to look at it too.
I do not believe it's a concern. It would have been flagged by Debbie, but to the extent that's something you would like to discuss, we can do it in that setting, for sure.
But I'm confident if we took it back to, and they started doing this work again, we would once again need to get their permission to take it back out. We couldn't just put it back out to bid to the private sector.
Okay.
Councilmember Warden?
It was more of a comment than a question, but I'm just surprised that a company out of Bellevue would send 4 employees all the way to Port Orchard through that traffic and whatnot round trip, and I don't see how that could be cost effective for them, but it's their business, and we're just accepting the bid.
Yeah, they were the low
Jaw
bid.
dropping to me.
I scratch my head too.
It really is economy of scale type situation. I think is when they have a full day's worth of work, this is the stop. So they're not spending the whole day at the spot. Some days they do, but
That's kind of what
they
I
have
was-
several contracts.
That's kind of what I was getting at, was when we say how many man hours they're spending, they spend 1 man hour 4 times, 4 man
No,
hours
Their trip
per trip.
Their trip per trip is within a few dollars of our 1-person hourly rate. That's per trip to each of those locations.
I don't know how they're making money at it either, but
Looks nice. I mean, they do a good job. I mean, that's their business. Yeah.
so, all right.
I had a follow-up question. So I'm just curious, who's been taking care of it so far this year, right? So they're supposed to have been out in January, February once, and then 4 times in March and 4 times in April thus far. Have they just been doing it without getting paid?
We did do under our authority, my authority. I'm able to do an extension on the contract. So we extended a few months until we could bring the revised scope to this board. They were working under with that extension. They were working under the adopted prices.
Perfect, thank you. I also drove it, and I agree with Councilmember Warden that Tremont looks great, right? Like, it just, I was hoping to hear that answer because I didn't want to hear, yeah, they haven't seen it since December and it still looks that good, so.
I do want to just stress that there is always going to be opportunities for staff to take on work. I've been on the wrong end of it when it wasn't cost savings, and there's a time and place, but there will always be opportunities for us to do certain things.
There's plenty of work out there to be done beyond this. All right, Councilmember Trenary.
Hey, Dennis, just curious. Earlier this spring, middle of the winter, we saw some folks out doing some tree trimming along Tremont. Was that our people? Was that Public Works? Or was that the at-work commercial?
This scope was revised. We lost a little parking lot with some property. With the Marina Pump Station, there was some change. We did re-scope this a little bit. That included pruning work.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions? You'll be voting on the approval of amendment number 5 to contract number 02-21 with At-Work Commercial Enterprises for the Tremont landscaping maintenance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract amendment has been approved. We're now to our new business item E, which was consent item D, which is the approval of amendment number 5 to contract number 007-21 with At-Work Commercial Enterprises LLC for various areas of landscape maintenance. Mr. Ryan, this is you.
So, as discussed in the last topic, I'm happy to answer any questions. This is for the area that's not Tremont, that focuses primarily on this downtown area. So,
At Turner Park, parking lots, and other areas within the city. So, Councilmember Trenary.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute amendment number 5 to agreement number C007-21 with At-Work Commercial Enterprises LLC for various areas landscaping maintenance.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Trenary, a second by Councilmember Morrissey. Any further questions on this? Pretty similar to the other one, just different areas. All right, you'll be voting on amendment number 5 to contract number 007-21 with At-Work Commercial Enterprises LLC for various landscape maintenance in the city. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract amendment is approved. We've got a couple of discussion items or presentations this evening. The first is about our parks, and getting a number of these, so my goal is to make the not to have to do all this history and at the retreat. So Mr. Ryan's going to give us a presentation on our parks amenities in the city.
I'm going to actually turn this over to Director Bond. He had the first part that would tie into the rest.
All right.
And then I need a break.
All right, good evening, council. It says my Zoom is crashing.
Message, don't send. We get that message then.
Not changing my slides, though. What I get for bragging about how my technology was going to work before the meeting. Why don't you go ahead?
I will go ahead and go first. So let's pull ours up here.
You know what, actually, Brandy, if you just want to share, I can do mine from your slide, and I'll just tell you to advance.
You remove that extra box over there, Brandy, on the right-hand corner.
Is it right or left or up or down for advancing?
Thank you.
I think to the right.
All right. Sorry for the delay. Good evening, council, mayor. As you're aware, the city does not have a parks department, and so parks is sort of a team effort between Public Works and planning, and each department has different roles. There's several that we collaborate on, but the Department of Community Development is responsible for the city's comprehensive plan, which we are currently updating. We help prepare the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, which is a joint effort between planning and Public Works. The DCD works on grant applications, most commonly through the Recreation Conservation Office. And we also have assisted historically on park master plans, but the last park master plan that the city did was for McCormick Village Park in 2010. So it's been some time since we have done a specific park master plan. And finally, we work with Public Works on park improvement, design, and permitting. Dennis is going to give you a presentation later about the role of Public Works, which includes a number of additional, more operationally and capital project-focused tasks. So I'm going to start with our comprehensive plan. As you are all aware, we are updating the comprehensive plan at this time, and we have a deadline to adopt that by December 31st, 2024. The comprehensive plan includes a parks element, which is actually an optional element to the comprehensive plan, but we choose to put a parks element in the city comprehensive plan. That parks element serves as the foundation for our park impact fee program. And so in order to charge impact fees, you have to have your identified parks projects adopted in your comprehensive plan. And our parks element and our capital facilities element draw from that the park, recreation, and open space plan. We commonly refer to that as a PROS plan in the in our government planning world. So we adopted our PROS plan back in 2022. So the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, the reason that we write this plan and update it every 6 years is that there is a state office called the Recreation Conservation Office, and they have a ton of different grant programs to fund parks and recreational facilities. In order to apply for those grants, you have to submit your plan for certification, and the plan has to be less than 6 years old. So we will need to begin updating our PROS plan again towards the end of 2026 in order to adopt a new plan by February of 2028. And so in the fall budget, we will be requesting funds for the second year of the biennial budget to begin the parks plan update, and then there will have to be additional funds budgeted for 2027 if we are to update the parks plan and remain eligible to apply for this funding source. RCO grants provide a 50% match for park projects, but I actually got some good news yesterday. The latest census data from this 2020 census, which was not out when we last applied for a grant, we are still considered, I guess this isn't good news, but we're considered an underserved community for parks. So we actually get a 40% match and a 60% funding from the state. So it's a little bit better than a 50% match requirement for that funding. And then finally, in the parks plan, about half of the document are appendices, and one of the appendices is the park impact fee calculation, which is based on our level of service per capita and is based on the project list that is in that appendix. The city's park impact fee, I'll touch on briefly. It was updated in 2022, and we increased it significantly over the previous amount. We hadn't updated a parks plan in quite a few years, and so when we finally looked at what our community needs for its growth projections and updated our capital project list, it allowed us to calculate fees that were give us much more bandwidth to complete and expand our park system. And so the rates that you see here are the current March 2024 rates, and every March 1st we do a CPI adjustment on our park impact fee rates, and so March 1st, 2025, these numbers will go up by whatever the consumer price index adjustment is for the Bremerton-Silverdale metro area. The last couple of years have been higher than traditional. They've been 4% and 5%. Prior to the current period of inflation, we usually saw between 1% and maybe 2.5% annually. So and just one more thing on the parks impact fees. The impact fee money can only be spent on capital projects that add parks capacity to the city. So these funds cannot be used for any sort of maintenance. However, if you have an existing facility that you want to expand, for instance, if you're turning a tennis court into a tennis and pickleball court by restriping it. You can do that sort of thing, or you can increase the capacity of your park by adding bigger play toys or larger features that can serve more people. So in terms of near-term parks projects, the big one that I think everybody is aware of is the Port Orchard Community Event Center. But that project is actually kind of 4 projects in our parks plan. There's the Library and Community Event Center building. There's the Waterfront Plaza Shoreline Restoration and Enhancement Project that is waterward of the Community Event Center, and that includes replacing the seawall that has to be done before we can actually pour the foundations for the new building. There's the Orchard Street Plaza, which is supposed to be located in the Orchard Street right-of-way between the future Kitsap Bank, the Community Event Center, and then it meanders around the Marina Lift Station that is under construction today. And then there is the Port Street Plaza, which is on the west side of the Community Event Center building, between the building and 7-Eleven. So those 4 projects are all in the appendices to the Parks Plan, and a portion of each of those projects can be funded with park impact fee money. The next project on the list is the Givens Park Sport Court remodel, and this is one that we'll talk about a little bit further in the presentation because we do have a grant to build that one, and that is the tennis courts and the basketball court at Givens Park are being refurbished. The next project, McCormick Village Phase 3. This is a project that a developer has agreed to make these improvements in exchange for park impact fee credit against their future construction, and there's also 2 trail projects at McCormick West that are also eligible for park impact fees. And then about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, maybe last year, I can't remember clearly, we purchased the Sherman Avenue Stormwater Park property, and that is a property that we bought to be a regional stormwater park facility, but also can incorporate parks and recreational amenities. And so there's the ability to spend parks money to make park improvements on the portions of that site, not to be occupied by stormwater facilities. So we've received a number of grants recently. In the 2022 RCO funding cycle, we received $500,000 for this the project that is waterward of the Community Event Center. That was a Recreation Conservation Office, they call it an Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account grant, and that is really about shoreline enhancement type projects. We received $176,400 from the RCO to do the Givens Sport Court remodel, and the Rotary Club generously volunteered to do some fundraising, and so they're actually trying to raise the funds for nearly all of our match. And you'll actually be seeing a memorandum of understanding probably next meeting with the city and the Rotary, where they're going to agree to transfer those funds to the city in support of that project. The Community Event Center, I just generally categorize that as public facilities district funding, but that's a very complicated project that I think have already had a meeting on, so I'm not going to get into the details there. And then the Bay Street pedestrian pathway, I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on that, but that is also a federally funded project. It's actually, it's in the Parks Plan as a parks project, but it's also in our transportation as a transportation project. So in terms of grant applications going forward, we're actually in an open window for applying for funds, and applications are due May 1st. So one of the grants that we're applying for is called a Water Access Grant through the Recreation Conservation Office, and we're applying for now $600,000 because we learned of the 60-40 match. They're actually increasing the amount of funding that we can receive, and that will be to build the Orchard Street Plaza between the Community Event Center and Kitsap Bank, and circling kind of around the Marina Lift Station. And so our department is actively working on that application, and the first pre-screening deadline is May 1st in order to be considered to formally submit the grant later in the summer. The Port of Bremerton has also contacted us asking us to write a letter of support because they're going to apply for an RCO grant to do park maintenance at Marina Park because there are some park maintenance grant categories. And so we'll be drafting a letter of support unless the council asks us not to, for their effort, and I don't have any information yet on how much money they're requesting. In terms of future parks planning, and I know that you're going to be talking about parks at your retreat, we should start thinking about what grants we may want to apply for in 2026, because the RCO grant program is pretty generous. I am 7 for 7 in writing grant applications, and so if you meet the criteria for the program and you pick the right project to fit the program, there's a high chance of success in getting funding, but you have to have that match, which is where our impact fees come in, because the impact fees for most of our projects we can then leverage that RCO money. So projects for 2026 that we've tossed around would be, if we can do some preliminary design on the Sherman Avenue Stormwater Park, we could potentially go in for funding to actually make those improvements. But I think that we need cost estimates and at least some low-level engineering design to really visually show the agency what we intend to do. We've also talked, obviously the Little League is wanting to make improvements to the sports fields at Givens Park. Dennis and I have talked a lot about potentially preparing a Givens Park master plan to sort of refresh that park, look at ADA issues, look at parking issues, fencing, fix the things that need fixing, but also look for opportunities to enhance the park. And so, you know, I think that doing a park master plan now would lay the groundwork for potentially a future grant application at that park. And then the Ruby Creek Park, in the Ruby Creek sub-area plan that we developed a few years ago, Kitsap Transit is going to have a large remnant from their park and ride project that is in the floodplain where you can't really develop because of flooding issues. But in terms of putting walking trails and having a small upland park, and then also trying to get parks along both sides of Ruby Creek with maybe a pedestrian bridge across the park, that is another park that if we did some master planning, we could potentially go after some funding to look at making those improvements once Kitsap Transit has completed their park and ride project.
And before you move on, Nick, there, I just want, if you go back to the other slide, that Orchard Street, the community center, our portion, and the library has an obligation to raise about $4 million, and so do we. And we've got that covered from for the community center. But in the perfect world, we want to go to bid on the community center and the Orchard Street Plaza. We don't have enough park impact fees yet. So we're hopeful Nick's successful in that $600,000 grant. And if the housing market stays robust like it is, we're going to be fine. But we've got it, before we start applying for other grants, we got to make sure that we can deliver on the projects we have, you know, before us. And so the exercise at the retreat is going to be, you know, we probably can't apply for grants for all of those things that he described, but which one of those is your guys' highest priority? So we'll pursue that one, but we need to be conscious of, we need to have the dollars to deliver on the community center before we start moving on to the next project down the road. So.
Thank you. So in terms of, I mentioned a couple of near-term projects that are funded through park impact fee credit agreements, and we have 2 credit agreements in place currently. One of them is with McCormick Communities, and that agreement was updated in 2022. And prior to 2022, we had an agreement, I think from 2011, that McCormick had dedicated the land for McCormick Village Park to the city and then provided cash for us to do the master plan for that park. They still have credit owed to them from that 2011 agreement for the dedication of that land, and so we still owe them $643,000 in credit for that land value. And the per house credit is pretty low for that one. But in the Refresh 2022 agreement, we agreed to give them credit for 4 more projects, and this was they were very opposed to us increasing the park impact fee, and by providing credits for these 4 projects, that's how we were able to sort of build consensus for this higher fee for park impact fees going forward. So there's a McCormick Village Park Phase 3. McCormick Village Park is along McCormick Village Drive, which used to be called Campus Parkway in the old McCormick Master Plan, but it goes out to Sinclair Ridge, and that improvement is going to have 2 park entrances. There's a south park entrance right next to the commercial village that is under construction right now, and then there's a north entrance further down that road, almost before you get to the big stormwater pond, before you enter Sinclair Ridge, that it will also have a trailhead with some pickleball courts installed and some really nice landscaping and restoration and planting of trees to kind of expand on the historic forest footprint. So they have designed the pickleball courts at the north end. They are in the process of designing a trailhead that is closer to the commercial area that will let people go from, say, a coffee shop or a place where you can get lunch and walk directly into the park and a short walk on the trail to the playground. And that also provides pedestrian connectivity all the way through to development on Channing Circle as well as onto the ridge. And so there are trails that go from the ridge kind of out to Old Clifton Road, and eventually you'll be able to go into the park and get to that village without walking on the shoulder of the road, is the idea there. So the other park impact fee credit agreement is the Sinclair Ridge Apartments Agreement, and this was rebranded as the Haven Apartments there at the corner of Hovde and Sydney Road Southwest. And so they had a remnant property along Ruby Creek at the intersection where Ruby Creek goes underneath Sydney, and it's a small piece of property. We valued the property at $126,000. They still have 2 years on that agreement to decide whether they're going to give us the property or just pay the fee, the park impact fee. And so they were evaluating whether they have any possible use for that property, but I sort of expect that it will be dedicated to the city and will allow us to complete a trail on the north side of Ruby Creek that then ties into that Ruby Creek Regional Park. So the next, I included a couple of graphics for some of these improvements just to help you visualize what it is that you're looking at. McCormick Village Park Phase 3, you can see there's some parking kind of at the south end of McCormick Village Drive with a new trailhead. The pickleball courts are up here by the stormwater pond, and I realize that my mouse doesn't work because I'm doing this on my screen. So there's an entrance further up to the north that provides access to the second of the 2 pedestrian bridges that are already in the park. The second graphic on the right, this just shows the actual improvements that have been constructed so far, which includes that on-street parking, and then there's a pathway along McCormick Village Drive on the park side of the road that goes all the way out to Sinclair Ridge, and so that is also part of the improvements that they are getting credit for.
Mr. Bond?
Yeah.
Did the city of Bremerton pay into that too? Or the developer, I guess not the city, because
No.
those residents will realistically use that park as well, right?
So when Sinclair Ridge was approved, we wrote comments asking them to contribute to both the park and the transportation improvements. We had not yet completed our parks plan, and so we had a much harder time asking for the parks improvements because they weren't identified in our capital plans, whereas the transportation improvements were. So we're getting quite a bit of money from them in transportation, SEPA-based transportation fees rather than GMA-based impact fees, Growth Management Act-based impact fees, but they did not contribute to parks. But they also argued that they're putting in pocket parks throughout their neighborhood, and so they're meeting their parks demand by providing kids' toys and other things. And I think I actually saw a kid's toy right near the entrance of their neighborhood that their children there can use. So they'll have many options. I'm sure they don't have a splash pad though.
Yeah, I remember
I
asking
do have a
for that.
question.
Yep.
Are these projects previous council approved? We don't approve these? What's the process on these?
The contract number C110-22 is the approved development agreement, and that agreement, I believe, has a 20-year term. And so council previously agreed to accept these improvements and give credit. And you could try to renegotiate the agreement, but I don't. This is not something that really can be revisited at this point.
As you're saying all this, I just can't imagine how we're going to maintain it. So that's what I just keep watching. You go through these slides and all these things that we're adding, and I'm just, I'm really confused. I'll continue to listen.
We'll be talking about staff on Friday.
Continue to listen.
Well, at least this is probably a little bit lower maintenance project. At the McCormick West subdivision, they're building grade-separated pathways that will loop through that subdivision and connect up to the village. And so these are public trails available to any citizen in the community of Port Orchard, where you will be able to go run, jog, ride bikes, et cetera. So they are receiving some credit for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of this particular project. Phase 1 has been completed, and we are working on certification of costs right now to verify the credit amount for that portion of the pathway. Moving on to St. Andrews, so eventually there will be a loop in McCormick Woods as they complete that subdivision where you come in from Glenwood Road and you currently come to a stop sign and you can only turn left. That will eventually be a four-way intersection where you can turn right and loop around to the golf course clubhouse and come out near Old Clifton Road. And so they are going to be providing a grade separated pathway as part of that road segment as well, which is in the development agreement as being eligible for impact fee credit. And then I did mention that there's a St. Andrews Park improvement, but that actually isn't eligible for impact fee credits, but they will be building a park called St. Andrews Park at McCormick Woods as well. So,
Just because I live out there. You said when do they plan on putting that multimodal trail in?
they're working on submitting applications for starting to do work on the east side of McCormick Woods, but they haven't filed anything yet. So I would guess 3 to 5 years is realistic for groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And they don't get credits until they've built it and it's been certified.
Thank you. That helps.
So finally, this is, I mentioned the Haven Apartments project. In the small image at the top, you can see a green box. That's the small piece of property that they're proposing to dedicate to the city. And so it's not a ton of property, but when it is cobbled together with what Kitsap Transit has expressed interest in dedicating to the city, it becomes a pretty big regional facility. Long-term, this is just a list of projects that are in the parks plan, but we really don't see these as happening in the near term. Some of these are development agreement funded projects, some of them are not. Things we haven't mentioned, Etta Turner Park expansion. If the Ford dealership were ever to move off the waterfront, there's talk of improving the other side of Blackjack Creek so that it has vegetation and shade over the creek and potentially some habitat enhancement. There's talk of doing other park facilities at Mitchell Point. The parks plan identifies generically that we need 3 additional parks, generally in the area of East Port Orchard along Bethel, where we don't currently have any. There are no park facilities on that side of town. So trying to identify properties that could be acquired and improved as parks is something that we should start to focus on according to the parks plan. The Ross Point project, this actually now, at the time we wrote the parks plan, we didn't quite have as much information as we do now about the wetland mitigation bank out there, and so that's actually been acquired for mitigation banking purposes, and looks like it's going to be preserved in its natural state without necessarily being open to the public, but certainly providing green space in the community. There's improvements identified for Clayton Park, the Central Park, Clayton Park, and a whole variety of other kind of smaller park improvements. One of the things that you'll see in the parks plan is that they identify certain types of facilities, and one of them is a pump track. Like, kids love to ride their bikes on these pump tracks, and that's something that you can add to existing parks. And so it calls out the need to add pump tracks. It calls out the need to look at skate parks or water features, or there's a whole variety of amenities that could be added to the park system sort of anywhere. And then there's specific parks improvement needs for either new parks or the development of existing parks. And so I just had a couple of graphics here where you can see some of these parks. One of the other projects is the Johnson Creek Estuary Project, and actually WashDOT is pursuing this because of a culvert replacement that they have to do at the bottom of Port Orchard Boulevard. So our downtown master plan calls for creating some green space at the bottom of Port Orchard Boulevard that ties into our DeKalb Pier. The Etta Turner Park expansion is shown here where you've got the existing park on the east bank of Blackjack Creek, but it calls for some green space on the west bank. These are all from the downtown master plan. And then there's also, it is called for more of a park improvement where West Bay Center is now, if that ever redevelops, to provide some sort of park amenity along the waterfront in that location. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. And you're going to have to share that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Either one.
I had a couple questions, and again, they're tangents, so I apologize for going off script. Do we have any inventory of private parks, or ones that are in development that the developer owns? And I'll use McCormick Woods as an example, but it's not the only one. So
we do. I have to go back and look at the parks plan, but I believe that the parks plan did inventory private facilities because whether they're public or not, they do help satisfy the need within the community. And so they're part of our inventory, even if they're not available to the whole community. If there are parks at McCormick Woods that serve those residents, that lowers the level of service per capita needed for public facilities because they already have their own parks. So that was considered in the parks plan.
All right, my second question, and this is, it probably may get more into Dennis, and that is a concern I still have, and I think we've discussed it, not with current council, but before, and that is McCormick Village Park continues to get utilized quite a bit. When that water feature goes in this summer, yahoo. But I have concern about people being able to get to it. Both from McCormick Woods and now McCormick Trails, that getting to it is difficult if you're on the west, the west side of it. And I don't know if we have any plans to have a safe crossing there or what we can do.
You mean if you're on the south side of Old Clifton?
South side, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, the good news is that the pathway that was constructed in McCormick West, that is a public pathway,
Right.
connects into the side of McCormick Woods Drive. So, and that connects all the way up to the new east entrance of the park that McCormick Communities is going to build for us in exchange for credit. So once the trailhead is constructed and actually ties into the park, you'll be able to walk from anywhere in McCormick Woods, cross at the new roundabout in the marked
Right.
crosswalk,
And
and
then come
continue on
down.
that pathway and go into the park.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Morrissey?
Yeah, mine, question / statement-ish. You had a great slide listing out all the future projects and things, whether they're existing parks or future parks. I'd love to see some timeline for my reference to understand when we'd like to see those come online or those improvements happen so that we can track on where, I know it comes with funding and things like that, but
That's money.
if we goal those things, we can be working towards that and working towards finding those things. So I just, that would be a cool thing for me to see so that when we plan that out, even if we don't stick to it, right, that's where we goal ourselves.
I would say that in 2020, when you're in your 2026 retreat, that prioritization of which, we've got 6 park opportunities. Which one do
ones
you
do
want to
we want?
pursue? Because we can't do it all. And what's your highest priority? And right now, all of our efforts going into this community center and delivering on that. So it's probably not a good use of our time on Friday, but it's definitely, we should be doing that, and you guys need to give us direction. Well, I don't like that project, but you don't, but everybody else does, and that's their highest so it's a prioritization because we
Absolutely.
can only deliver on them likely one at a time.
And I think, yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of maybe what I'm looking for so that I know that, some grant comes up and now we don't have to use any park impact fees to build that.
they only
Just
give us
saying,
half,
if we could, if opportunity arises, then we know what we're looking at. So.
So we
And I-
know that next grant cycle's in 2026, so in 2025, that'll be a worthwhile effort, so that we're teed up and we know which park you want us, or park amenity you want us to pursue.
Yeah, and 2 comments on that. So first of all, in our comprehensive plan that we're working on right now, our capital facilities element is going to be more detailed in terms of our near-term funding, our 6-year funding. But the near-term project list that you saw is pretty much it for parks projects for the 6-year period. Every other parks project in the PROS plan is on the 20-year list, which is we're never going to build all those in 20 years. I don't think it's realistic, but that is our target. And I think there's room for one more parks master planning project to set up the next round of funding, because if we apply for grant funding in 2026, we don't find out that we get the money until 2027, then you have you have to write the grant agreement and take it to council, which is another 6 months, and then you have to select a consultant. And so realistically, the 2026 funding round is going to fund a project maybe in 2029 or 2030, which is at the end of that 6-year window. So it is important to kind of line those projects up and always have something that's kind of in the pre-design phase that we can go after that project at the end of our 6-year timeline.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think I told you during the land use committee when we were discussing the comp plan that, man, that's a lot of work that you do. And you did a great job on this too. It's really helps me see it and visualize it and understand the way you present it. So thanks for all the hard work, because it's a lot of work that you do. So I don't know how you do it, but thank you.
Councilmember Diener?
So when we did our park survey, what was that, 5 years ago-ish?
Yeah, when we asked for the priorities from the community?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of those priorities topped out with brick and mortar facilities, like Boys and Girls Club, a building for that. So I think that's important to kind of reflect upon too. There were some priorities that were shown by the public. And when you look at, in terms of prioritization, if we look at the pros plan in Appendix F, that talks about the use that people had with certain parks. And so when we talk about prioritizing what we want to do with certain parks, we might want to look at how often are they used. Now, granted, they might be used more if we gave them improvements. And then also, I don't want us to forget that we have an opportunity at some point in the future with the county wanting to dump its, is it called Retzel Park? Is that?
Yes, they gladly hand it to us, but it really
Yeah.
would take us having a Parks and Recs division to,
It would, but it's
handle
got what I call great bones for an athletic
does.
facility in the future. And so I
Absolutely.
don't want to forget that.
yep. Councilmember Fenton?
Oh, yeah, I know we haven't mentioned all the parks or the ones that are older. The one I kind of think of is that Mrs. Powers Park, right off of Sydney, and that one looks a little neglected. And I think you mentioned something that we could even fix up the older ones. And I don't know how much that one gets used, but it might be worthwhile to,
So I think Dennis is
work
going to
on.
touch on that in his operations presentation.
Yeah, and
Oh.
Yeah,
I can touch
can I
on that a
just-
little. It's
Can I just touch on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you look at how often you utilize these spaces, the Paul Powers Park came in at the second to lowest use.
Yeah, maybe because it needs to be updated, I
Well,
don't
There's not
know.
much there either.
The
Yeah.
challenge
And
is.
it's kind of dark, it's a very dark
Yeah.
park.
Our challenge is it's not a very big piece of property, and it really lacks parking. And so probably our best, that area of town deserves a proper park. And I don't think we could ever deliver on a proper park on that parcel of land. So the thought is, we bought the 20 acres at the end of Sherman for a regional park out there and a stormwater facility. And we could repurpose that property probably into a public works facility. It would be a very good use for that, because we have about half the park as public works, operations building. And it'd be difficult for us to do much on that small piece of land there, because it lacks parking and it lacks sidewalk improvements and other things. So, but more conversation.
Yeah, and then just another really quick, on apartments, with the impact fees, are apartments required, especially, and we did talk a little bit about this, Mayor, but, and I guess it depends on how big the complex is, but it seems like they should put a park in the middle or wherever for the apartments and stuff.
Yeah, so our design standards do require active open space in an apartment complex and the payment of an impact fee. So the impact fee rate per unit in an apartment complex is $4,402.99. So when we have these 100-unit apartments come in, they're writing a very large check for park impact fees, but they are, like the Haven Apartments, for instance, they put in a swimming pool, outdoor shuffleboard, gym, dog park, off-leash dog park. They have a stage, and that's how they satisfied their active open space requirements for our design standards. And so all of the apartment complexes that are coming in, the new one, it used to be called Overlook Phase 2. I forget what they've rebranded themselves off of Whittier. They have an outdoor pickleball court in their apartment complex as well as a gym. So the apartment complexes that are coming in are putting in these recreational amenities for their residents, in addition to paying into the city's park system.
Any last questions before Dennis does his part? Okay, Dennis, take it away.
Good evening again. So this is going to be a much briefer presentation. It's just an overview of our parks and then some creative ways, as we mentioned, about our level of service where we're currently at. We have exciting opportunities that are coming our way. We are about to become park rich with what we're bringing on, so I'm going to jump right into it. So Public Works, as Nick mentioned, so Public Works works with community development, and the Public Works consists of the engineering and the operations division. So we take care of all the parks operation and maintenance, project construction management for all the park capital improvements. Together with Nick's group, the grant applications where we can support him. Nick's mentioned opportunity for a master plan. Look forward to that. Park improvements, design, and permit. So they seem like details, but they're really important as we get into that discussion about how we maintain things. So here's just jumping into the overview. So first up is Clayton Park, located over on Dwight Street. It's 1.4 acres, and the amenities that it offers is picnic tables, playground equipment. There is a fairly large sports field, basketball court, seasonal restrooms, and a covered picnic shelter. This is a great spot for gathering and sports events. Next is Etta Turner Park down on Bay Street, located near Blackjack Creek. It offers a tranquil setting, park benches, picnic tables, gazebo, Bay Street, and its close proximity to the Bay Street pedestrian path, which is also part of our parks network as a trail. Ideal for relaxation, picnics by the creek, and leisurely walks along the pedestrian path. Up is here's the DeKalb Fishing Pier. I'm not sure if that's the proper name. Is it the pier or the fishing pier?
DeKalb Pier.
DeKalb Pier. So it's 170 feet. It's lit. You are allowed to fish on it, and the floats, I believe, is for boat access.
No overnighting.
Overnighting, correct.
And so here's Givens Park. Nick spent a lot of time talking about Givens Park. It's a pretty good size. It's 6.62 acres. It's the opportunity for a vibrant community hub with a range of facilities. There is a playground, the lighted tennis court, basketball court, restrooms, sheltered picnic area, home to the Active Club, providing meeting rooms and bathrooms and a kitchen for community use. And then Nick really got into the discussion about the upcoming renovation for the tennis courts and the pickleball basketball court to be resurfaced, which Nick's going to be able to tell you more about futsal. It's a type of soccer on a hard court. These are just examples of what they will look like. I've done conversions of tennis courts where they've been resurfaced with fencing and the addition of pickleball. You are going to be amazed of when this park gets completed, the amount of users that are going to gravitate towards here. People who haven't played tennis in years are going to remember that they love tennis because they see the pickleballers playing. So it's going to bring people out. With the Givens Community Center there and the condition of the existing facilities like the covered shelter and the restroom, there is a great opportunity for future grant funding for this park if there was a master plan. And we have Van Zee Park, which is slightly bigger. It's 8.4 acres. Diverse recreational opportunities, picnic areas, trails, shelters, sports fields, restrooms, lighted double tennis court, and disc golf. I understand that there is a community event coming up here where they're going to be working on the, is it the pickleball courts? On this one?
No, we postponed that project.
Okay, sorry. And then here is Rockwell Park, also adjacent to the Bay Street pedestrian path. It's situated along Bay Street. It offers serene sand landscape, park benches, green space, and potential for community events. Perfect for quiet reflection, enjoying the beauty of nature. These little, I'd call them almost pocket parks, if that's the correct term. These will really complement and be utilized when the new community events and plaza will be completed.
And I should mention, that was one of the parks, we wrote a grant for that in 2014, and RCO gave us funding to acquire that property, and then the Bay Street pedestrian pathway was built through it, and then RCO, I think, also paid for the landscape improvements, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And this is one of the areas that At Work is maintaining. And then we discussed here's Paul Powers Park. There is not a lot there. There is a older playground, and there is a big open space, and then a very small basketball court. And then up next is the McCormick Village Park. It offers the splash pad, the picnic areas, playground. And it's probably one of our newest playgrounds. Shelters, sports fields, and restrooms. And then trail access. And I believe when you get to pros plan with trail access, probably one of the higher rating amenities that the public looks for. Thought I read that.
I'd have to go back and check, probably. And actually, McCormick was also funded in that 2014 RCO grant, so that's another one. I think we got $350,000 at the time towards the Phase 2 improvements there.
The splash pad's ready to go for this year.
So when we talk earlier about the parks that we'll be bringing in and the current condition of our parks, we get into the term of level of service. And to me, what that means is it's being creative how we can maintain what we have and improve it. And it does mean being creative. So with our asset management, one of the next modules we'll be buying after we implement our utility will be a parks module. Utilization of this asset management software will enable proactive preventive maintenance and efficient capital replacement strategies by assessing current service levels and recommending future desired service needs. We will be conducting an assessment to understand existing level of park maintenance service. That can be done internally. Excuse me. That can be done internally. That is simply working with the crew and seeing how we are spending our time, frequency of mowing, application of broadleaf, schedule of mowing, of irrigation. It's truly understanding what we do and how we do it and look for efficiencies going forward. And then looking for areas of improvement and potential enhancements to maintain our operations. We plan on sending employees to certified playground safety inspection and really understanding what the current condition of our playgrounds are and when it should be replaced. So it's a proactive approach. And those tools, we will have those tools to build into our asset management system. And then just wrapping up, kind of the mission for all parks, it's especially true here. Port Orchard's parks provide invaluable spaces for recreation, relaxation, and community engagement. Parks offer opportunities for social interaction, fostering community cohesion and a sense of belonging. Parks are invaluable assets that enrich the lives of all users, offering a sanctuary from the bustle of urban life and fostering connections with nature and each other. So I am ready for any questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Councilor Rosebuddy.
This isn't a question as much as a statement, just to piggyback on what Heidi had said earlier about, keeping our parks up, and I know what you're talking about with use on that, Scott, that we need to do it, but also neighborhoods are cyclical. In McCormick Woods, when I first moved there, it was built as a empty nester, and they found out that 60% of the people that moved in bought kids. And then I watched it 20 years later. There were no, a lot of the kids have grown up, moved away. And now we have new families moving in, and, they bring in kids again. And so I think my comment is really focused that we need to be aware that, that neighborhoods are cyclical, and that we probably need to keep our parks up, all of our parks up, and not just kind of let them go because of usage, because we would find out that the usage could change as the neighborhoods change too. I don't know if that's making a lot of sense what I just said.
It does, and that strategy, the approach to maintain what we have at the level where we take care of it and don't let us have the deferred maintenance. It's either pay for it now or you're going to pay a lot more later. And it's easier to keep things in a good condition than it is to bring them back.
And I do understand that there's funding issues, and I hope we'll be able to help solve some of those things as the council when we talk with the mayor.
I don't know if you've been in any of our parks recently versus past springs, and we had a very tenured employee that was in charge of our parks for many, many years, even predating me. and he retired last year, and we wish him well. But Ian, our new employee, is really brought a tremendous amount of energy, and the parks look the best they have, in my opinion. When I drive around and look at them, I've battled getting the irrigation turned on and putting fertilizer. The prior employee didn't want to do that until the summer hires showed up. Well, when the summer hires show up in June, it's kind of too late for, that stuff should have already been done. So Ian is really, and I commend him all frequently when I see him out there. He's doing really good work, but he's one person doing all of these parks. So, and then he gets some summer hires. So we'll be talking about that at the retreat, and whether, but because we would like to do more. But I commend Ian and the work he's doing, because our parks look the best they have in as long as I've lived in Port Orchard. So other questions or comments, and before we jump on to the next item? Okay.
I have a
Go
quick
ahead. Sorry,
comment.
Greg.
I agree with a lot of what's said, and I keep thinking about Paul Powers Park that Heidi first brought up, because it is probably one of the most unappealing parks because of its location and its lack of amenities. On the other hand, if we try to take it away, or wrong words, but you find that a lot of the neighbors surrounding it do like to walk to it and are very loyal to it. So it's one of those chicken and egg things. If it were more appealing, it would probably get more use than being, second to the last. But so it's interesting. I don't know the solution, except we need to look at all the parks.
There's a big, I'm sorry.
I was just 6 years ago, we talked about, taking that park, and we heard from that neighborhood. So we don't want to take it away unless we can provide them something better. And that's kind of the plan. Is we owe that community a proper park. There's no doubt about it.
Well, there's a field next to it, and it's just wide open field. Who
That's
does
our
that?
field.
Oh, man, I could see that being used for soccer, little kids and everything. Do they use that a lot?
But there's no parking. That's the problem. So a whole bunch of families show up. There aren't any shoulders. There's limited parking. There's very limited
Yeah,
parking.
I'll have to take another peek, but yeah. Anyway, that's a great field, though, I tell you what.
I agree. Other questions or comments? All right. Last item on our agenda is the 2023 Annual Park Impact Fee Report. And this looks like Mr. Bond, because Mr. Crocker's on vacation.
Yes. So pursuant to Port Orchard Municipal Code, Section 20.182130, subsection 5, both the school district and the director of the Department of Community Development are required to provide an annual report on impact fee account showing the source and amount of all monies collected, earned, or received, and system improvements that were financed in whole or part by impact fees. Pursuant to interlocal agreement, contract 035-22 between the City of Port Orchard and the South Kitsap School District, the district transmitted its annual report to the city. The district and the city's required reports are provided in the packet. And pursuant to the interlocal agreement, the school district prepares their own report and sends it to you. We adopt the school impact fee, but the interlocal agreement governs that. And so I believe that the report they've provided meets the requirements of the interlocal agreement, but I can't speak to a lot of the project details other than that it looks like they spent a little bit of money this year. They also include both the city and county impact fee revenue collected in one, because the school district extends into Kitsap County, and so development in Kitsap County pays school impact fees as well as development in the city. And so in 2023, they collected $550,000 and a little over $550,000 from development in the city, and they currently hold a little over, or at the end of the year, they held over a little over $1 million in school impact fee funds. In terms of the city impact fee report, we provide a little bit more detail in our report, and one of the main things that we're focused on is there's a requirement in state law that says every impact fee dollar that you collect has to be spent within 10 years. And so it's really important, and our finance director really prioritizes kind of showing how the money is collected and when the money is spent. So the report is broken into both parks and transportation. And so for parks, the report shows that we are current. Well, first of all, it shows that we have about $1.9 million in the bank in our park impact fee account, and most of that is sort of marked for the community event center project. So that's not money that we can use to initiate new projects. We need more money to come in for that. And it's showing that we are current, I think through 2019 in terms of meeting our 10-year requirement, meaning that the money we have in the bank today needs to be spent by, where's the number here? I think it's 2030 or 2031 is the deadline for spending those funds. For transportation, our current ending fund balance for 2023 was 1.9 million and change. And there's a detailed breakdown, I'm sorry, that's the park impact fee number. It's 2.317 million for transportation impact fee money. And there's a detailed breakdown of how we've been spending that money, at least in the last year. And I'm really messing up this report because Noah prepared most of the numbers. I'm sorry, the transportation impact fee balance is $5.413 million. And again, we have spent all the money collected prior to 2020, and so by 2030 we need to spend all the money that we have today, and we are hard at work on that with the Bethel Avenue project. And so if there's any questions, I can try to find the answer here.
So Councilmember Trinity is asking a question, looking at the projects there, and he says, is that accurate that only 221,000? So on that Sydney Road non-motorized. So
Drop some zeros there.
impact fees can only pay for portions of a project. So that was an $800,000 project that we could only spend in 221,000 in.
No, that is actually $221. I asked the same question of Noah.
Okay,
and
it's
I think,
not in thousands?
I think that might have been an advertisement when we selected the consultant that we billed to the impact fee fund because it was part of, or maybe it was the bidding.
Oh, so this is an
It's
expenditure.
the only expense we incurred on the project in 2023. We're going to spend a whole lot more this coming year.
Okay, all right, I
Can you
had it
ask-
totally wrong.
Can you ask Noah to learn how to indent?
It would make it easier for me to present the report, that's for sure.
Not look right.
So those are expenditures.
Yeah.
Correct. Those were the expenditures in 2023. So anyway, this report is just provided every year. We give a presentation. We show you what our current balance is, where we're at on our 10-year tracking to show that we are complying with state law and how we spent the funds. And so this is the 2023 report, and we'll have another one for you next year.
So the long and short of it is, the majority of our park impact fees right now are going to the community center, and the majority of our transportation impact fees are going to Bethel. Because those were our big capital projects in the city. All right, questions for Nick on Noah's report?
I'll wait for Noah to come back. I would like to make one comment to the council, and that is, we had long discussions over the last several years about raising our impact fees for parks and transportation and keeping them current. We are not the highest impact collection of impact fees in our area.
On parks we are.
In parks, yes, you're correct. But one of the things that we had, past council had voted on, was the fact is that as people are coming into the city, that the existing folks should not be paying for growth. That the people coming in should be paying for the growth where possible, and that had a lot to do with why our fees are as high as they are.
One of your retreat topics is we're eligible to update the traffic impact fee study next year, and whether you feel that's a priority or not to fund that study and look at, because the costs of projects are going up. Mm-hmm. And the amount of development has changed since our last report. So more to come on that. So, all right, we ready to jump into council committee reports? All right, economic development and tourism. You met earlier this week.
Yesterday morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the Economic Development and Tourism Committee met with our stakeholders present. We had a good meeting. We talked about aligning our mission and some of the things. Well, first of all, I'd like to bring up, and maybe it's something it's too late for a retreat topic, but we don't have a charter for this committee, and I don't know if we have charters for any of our committees or not. You know, it definitely helps shape the work that that committee is doing. So that may be something for a future possible discussion at some point.
That could be your committee's.
Okay, I didn't know if the council wanted the committee to create its own charter, or if we have direction for that. Is that what you did? You created your own? Okay, we talked about that as well, so I wanted to gain consensus from this group, so I appreciate that. So, because we talked about aligning what we're doing with some of the missions that they're working on, if we can just add color to what they're doing, or they can bring levels of their expertise to what we're doing here at the city as well, including possible surveys for future topics and things like that. Nick shared pre-app meetings that he's having with businesses and development coming to our area as well as we talked about the cleaning of the sidewalks. We thanked the city staff for the pressure washing that's going on downtown. And then we had a brief discussion for a future topic around parking as well. But I think super high level, that covered most everything we spoke. I don't remember the date of our next meeting, but it'll be next month.
John, a quick question. When you talk about the stakeholders, who outside are we having attend also?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Councilmember Rose Pepe. Our current stakeholders that we had present with us this month were KETA, the South Kitsap Chamber of Commerce, and our Port Orchard Bay Street Association.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're always open if you have other folks or
and
you're
Cody.
meeting people.
And Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, South Kitsap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. And so we're always open, so if you have people or somebody talks to you about that, shoot them my way. We'd love to add to our collection.
Thank you.
All right. Utilities, you met this evening.
We did. I'll try to get this right. If not, I'll ask the participants to jump in. We had if you remember, we postponed our stormwater rates and charges till 1 June. They're working on cleaning up the language, and additionally, there was a rate discussion on impervious surfaces to multi-unit
Duplexes, triplexes,
houses.
and fourplexes.
Yeah, thank you. And so it looks like there's 100 folks that, properties that are going to be looked at. In most cases, it may be a rate reduction, but they're going to have to do some actual measuring, and that's a good thing. We went over the water quality reports for the city of Port Orchard and McCormick Woods, 2 different systems. They are posted on our website. And additionally, they do provide handouts to some of the apartment complexes due to the fact is that some of the folks don't get a sewer bill. So that's good news. You all got the Marina Pump Station update tonight. Much appreciated, Dennis. The big question was, not the big question, but the big takeaway was the state's happy, and that's the important part. We're doing a tour on April 18th, a week from Thursday at 13:30 for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Eric has, he feels like he's up to speed on it right now. So it's myself and Heidi. If somebody else would like to go along, please let me know. If it's more than one person, we'll have to do a quorum, but that opportunity is open to anybody that would like to go. And our next meeting is going to be May 8th at 5 o'clock. One of our topics is going to be fluoride in the water, the city of Port Orchard water system. McCormick Woods does not get fluoride at this point in time. That's my report, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Finance meets next week, transportation the 23rd, land use on the 17th, and we're having a retreat on Friday. So on to the mayor's report. I've got a few things. Of course, the retreat's this Friday, 9 a.m. Lunch, hopefully you get your lunch order into the clerk's office. We'll have some coffee and pastries for you in the morning when you guys arrive. Looking forward to it. Transportation Committee directed staff and I to conduct a speed bump survey on Merrimack. The addresses have been generated. It's about 150 households that we're going to sending this postcard to. Utilities Billings currently has the address list because we have physical addresses and not everybody may not get their mail there. So we're confirming what mailing addresses are so we make sure that we try to reach everyone. Our goal is to get this postcard out by the end of the month and start collecting that survey data to report back to you next month. I'm giving my annual State of the City address. If you guys would like to see that, I could
Yes.
make some
Absolutely.
time at the retreat at the
Yes.
beginning of it, if you'd like. I gave it this morning to the League of Women's Voters. I'm giving it to the Home Builders Association tomorrow, Chamber of Commerce on Thursday, the Morning Rotary Club, the end of the month, and 2 different sessions with city staff. It's,
Could you send it to us?
I can't, I'm gonna give it, I'll present it to you, but.
Okay.
But I can provide you a copy, yes. The roundabout by Kentucky Fried Chicken, for the state, the state has approved the contractor's paving plan. It's scheduled for around May 1st, but it's subject to weather. And so around May 1st, they gotta have dry and warm weather to pave, so, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, what's the time frame expected for that pavement?
Few days. It's just a few days worth of work.
By the
They've got a
4th, it
little
should be
punch list of
complete.
items that they need to address too, what the contractor does. But I don't believe we're ever gonna see those signals back. There's gonna be flagging work, out there. So, John, did we notify PSRC about John being the alternate?
I believe so.
Okay, could you confirm that for me? I meant to ask about that. I didn't need to do that here. Sorry about the print job. That's now the copier room since we're remodeling. So, personnel policy changes that I'm required to report to you. Our policy regarding vacation rollover was updated, and there was a footnote that the language no longer applied, so it was struck from the policy. And so it was just definitions and that were no longer relevant. And the Community Service Day is still planned for 9 a.m., April 27th. I have commitments from the Morning Rotary Club to do playground chips at Givens Park. The merchants are going to do some beautification, which include painting the posts. So Dennis, you got to get paint that matches for the posts downtown. I haven't caught you to tell you that yet. The Noon Rotary Club is going to do Beauty Bark at Etta Turner Park. And Mr. Morrissey and I were talking about, I'm trying to get a group to do some beautification at McCormick Village Park, spread some beauty bark at the entrance, and I'm hopeful maybe some of the residents out there would, I reached out to the HOA and I didn't hear back from them yet.
What's the date again?
April 27th. So I need a group.
I'm hoping some other people up here can help the mayor with that. I know I said I would reach out to a Meadows HOA, so.
So, yeah, if I could get commitment, we'll provide the beauty bark. We want to do the beautification, but I need some help. Minutes. So 50 years ago, the city approved the purchase of a 1974 police pursuit car. I don't know why they called it and an amount not to exceed $4,500. Model and make to be at the discretion of the police chief. We don't do that anymore. We pick his cars for him in finance. And that the 1972 Dodge be kept for the police chief's use. So I think we might have only had one officer and one police chief and 2 cars at that time. So 75 years ago, 1949, the superintendent, which I think that's the Public Works Director, reported that arrangements can be made to secure the use of, had been made to secure the use of a street sweeper and on a demonstration basis so that city officials can see firsthand what can be accomplished by this modern method of cleaning. That's from our minutes. So, and 100 years ago, the marshal, I guess that was before we had a police chief, was directed to consult with the sheriff in respect to the cesspool that was forming at the county courthouse. So I'm not sure what that was. And Mr. Applegate was granted permission to use the town hall on Friday evening for the purpose of considering the organization of a Kiwanis Club in Port Orchard. So that was also in our city council minutes. So that concludes my mayor's report. And the department heads, Mr. Ryan.
Nothing further to report tonight. Thank you.
Bond?
Yeah, I want to follow up on an email that I sent to you all last Thursday concerning our reporting on development activity for the Office of Financial Management year, the beginning April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024. We reported to the Department of, or the Office of Financial Management, that the city issued certificates of occupancy for 291 single-family detached homes in that calendar year, April to March 31st. And we issued 2 duplex units, 4 units in a fourplex, and completed 146 apartments with an additional 40 apartments given temporary certificates of occupancy. And so we also completed 1 accessory dwelling unit, and we had 7 single-family homes demolished. And so every year, OFM asks our department for this information because they use it to update their population forecast. We actually receive certain revenues, I think gas tax, marijuana sales revenues, and a few other state revenues are based on population, and so this population growth should increase those handful of revenue sources. Our population beginning, our April 1, 2023 population was 17,480 residents. I'm expecting that these new units, once the occupancy rate is applied, we're probably going to see an increase of about 900 to 1,250 units, depending on what that occupancy rate is. And they may look into some of the apartments in terms of when they were actually completed and what their absorption rate is in terms of being rented. And so it's a pretty big number. And the more alarming thing is that we have a much larger number already under construction that will be reported in the next fiscal year. And so I think our April 1, 2025 number is going to be really big. The official numbers come out at the end of June, so in 2 months, a little under 2 months, you will hear the final OFM number for the city.
Thank you. Ms. Archer?
Mr. Bond, can I ask a quick question? How does that compare in previous years, right? Like, I love learning and seeing these numbers, but it doesn't give me context.
Yeah, well, I think that 2 to 3% growth was our historic rate until the last 2 years, and it really picked up. Last year, it was 6.5%. I think we're going to see it probably a little under 6.5% this year when the number comes out, and next year I think it could be a little more than that, but I think it flattens out after that because most of the apartment projects that we have seen are nearing completion, and we have a few apartment projects in the pipeline. I just don't feel as confident that they're actually going to go forward and be constructed. I think there's still 1 or 2 that will go forward, but not in the volume that we've seen over the last 3 years.
And so even like the single family stuff, that's pretty on par with what we've seen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can say that the building codes changed on March 15th. Lisa, our permit technician, reported to me earlier this week that we have like 270 building permits submitted in our online portal that we have not loaded into our permit system yet. So that's how many people came in trying to beat the codes, but we've already received the number of applications that we completed in terms of houses last year. And so I think the single family growth rate is going to be steady. Multifamily will probably start to taper off here in the near future. And to Councilmember Rosa Pepe's point earlier, just about changing neighborhoods and parks needs, you know, when we annexed all of this land between 2008 and 2011, we have had a ton of vacant, fairly easy to develop land. That land is starting to disappear, and I think that this wave of development is really still an after effect of that annexation, and it's going to stabilize and kind of normalize back at more of a 2% growth rate if we give it another 2 years.
Thank you.
That's his crystal ball.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Ms. Archer?
Just real quick, and I'm going to follow this up with an email that summarizes what I'm about to say in greater detail. At the end of March, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case called Lidkey versus Freed, and this pertained to a social media account by Mr. Freed, who was the city manager in Port Huron, Michigan. He was blocking Mr. Lidkey and deleting his comments on his social media page, and his social media page said at the top, you know, I'm father to, and named changed his daughter's name, husband to wife, and also I'm city manager of the city. And then the majority of his posts were personal in nature, but there were many times he was posting about city business. He would forward posts from official city websites, things that you've asked questions of me about in open session as far as your abilities under the Constitution and to avoid a 1983 challenge to your actions. So the U.S. Supreme Court in this case has reversed the Ninth Circuit case that was our guidance in this area, and the court has given very different direction than I have given you in the past. So I want to make that clear for you in an email so that you can understand sort of what the best new steps are. In particular, where we previously had guidance that if you had an appearance of it being an official account, there was a risk. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected that and said you have to have actual authority to be posting on behalf of the city, which arguably none of you do because you're all individual council members. You don't have the authority to post on behalf of the city. So this will change the guidance I give my clients with regards to use of personal social media accounts for the better, in the sense that you have a bit more freedom and less fear of 1983 claims. The huge caveat, and I'll note this in my email, is this case does not impact the case law with regards to public records. So the public records sort of standards that I've tried to drill into you with regards to retention of your social media accounts, that will still stand. Even if you don't have actual authority to be posting, there could still be a risk with regards to public records. So we still need you to be retaining those. So I've given you a very high level summary. This is a rather detailed fact specific case, and I will follow this up with an email, but just to give you a bit of good news from the U.S. Supreme Court. So thank you.
Deputy Chief.
Thank you. We've been moving back into the police department, and the officers and the professional staff are really appreciative of the new furniture and the layout. And I know some of you guys were down there and saw it a couple of weeks ago when it was empty, but all our stuff in there now, it's back to being full, but it's a good change for us. We were able to hire a new officer started yesterday, so we have another officer started yesterday and a couple continuing the process. We just did more interviews and put some more in background, so we're moving forward with that. So.
Hiring is going well, I know that.
Yeah, hiring's going well, and the new building's going well as we put things together, so, thank you.
Could we get a tour when it's all built out and occupied and?
Downstairs?
Yeah, I missed the last
Can we
tour.
go down there tonight? If we have an escort with you, because I really can't take you down there. Your security, now that they're back in there.
Oh, I see.
There's a security aspect to it.
I'll text my boss and ask.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I just thought I'd like
Yeah,
to see it.
Maybe the next
maybe it
time.
waits on a night when he's
Yeah.
here to do that.
We're still putting things together, so you'll want to see it
Yeah.
in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
There's just federal requirements around that, and everybody has to be signed in that's not CJIS trained, so.
Got it.
Miss Wallace, how are you? Last but not least.
I am doing well, thank you, and I don't have anything to add tonight. So.
All right. Thank you. All right, we're to our citizen comment period. Mr. Kamich, thank you for being patient. And you have 3 minutes to address the city council.
Is my time starting now?
I know, jeez.
How about now?
I allow you to say your name.
Okay, my name's Ken Cabbage. Is that enough? I appreciate the time here tonight. I wanted to put a face to the many emails that have been sent. I appreciate, if you've read them, I appreciate it. If you haven't read them, I understand. I love Port Orchard. I really do, and I appreciate you all working for Port Orchard. It's not an easy job, and I really appreciate it. I felt that I needed to come and see one of these meetings and see all the work and the thoughtfulness and the discussion, and I am impressed. Does that count against my 3 minutes? That's a joke. However, I don't think it was done with respect to the speed humps. I think that it was done to appease a very vocal resident that no longer lives here, no longer loves the community that I love. And I just don't think they work. I've been told that the solution is to just drive down the middle of them. And I don't think that's an acceptable response. I've since learned in talking to folks that that it was done on a trial basis. So it was done with no public comment, no public notice. I didn't get a chance to come up here and say what I thought about it at the time, but I've heard that it was done on a trial basis. I don't understand what that exactly means, or what the plan was for the trial basis. So I'd ask the Transportation Committee, what did we mean when we put them in on a trial basis? To me, it seems like it's failed. But let's say it was successful, then what? Then we're going to deploy speed humps throughout McCormick Woods or throughout Port Orchard. I've been told repeatedly that no, we're not putting speed humps anywhere else. We don't have the resources to put speed humps anywhere else. So it doesn't really make sense why we tried them in the first place, other than to appease a very vocal resident. I appreciate the survey. I'm not afraid of the survey. I have a feeling I'll be out doorbelling and making sure people vote whichever way they want to vote. But I do think it should be broader. Again, the thought being, if we're going to have speed bumps, if we think they work, then let's put them on St. Andrews, let's put them everywhere. If they don't work, let's get the ones out on Merrimack. I do, and just going back, I do sincerely appreciate your all's work. It's pretty much a thankless job. I see a lot of, that's the first time you've all agreed with anything I've said tonight. So I do appreciate it, and thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ken. All right, anything for the good of the order?
I'm first. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You
Okay.
raise your hand.
I was asked to put in an application to join the board of Kitsap Community Resources, and I just wanted to see if any other council member wanted to do it instead or as well.
As a former board member, I would cheer you on.
Oh, so you were on KCR? Okay, so you know what it is. Okay, yeah. They have the worst mission statement. They kind of do all social services. Anything you can think of, they basically do it. So it's hard to boil that down into a sentence. I looked at their website. So I'm willing to put in the 2 to 4 hours. If anyone else is interested or wants to be an alternate.
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Just the consensus.
We appreciate your service, Fred, that's what I'm hearing.
Just didn't want you to be surprised.
Okay. All right. Heidi, you have something?
Thank you, Councilmember
thank
Fred. Oh, yes, we had coffee with the council, members on Saturday, the 6th, last Saturday, and it was council, and I will get out an email so you can see some of the questions, but I just wanted to make just a couple of them I wanted to put out there, and it was Councilmember Mark and Councilmember Jay and I were down there, and I had a couple people asking why the crosswalk lights are not working, and those are the crosswalks referencing on Bay Street, that is Josephine's and Revival, and they haven't worked for a long time, but we're getting more and more people, and even at night, and sometimes cars do go by, they're kind of fast, and we're getting more events down there, and so
They don't function, but
No.
we'll be addressing those crossings when we rebuild Bay Street. They're not functional. They haven't been functional for a number
I
of
thought they were
years.
turned off. Is that?
No, they haven't.
broken.
They're broken, and it's just, they're the state's asset, not the city's. But we'll be addressing, when we raise Bay Street, we'll be putting in the flashers like we have at the other end, I believe. The design's not done.
Oh,
but
yeah, I know, it'd be so nice. I love those other flashers down there. They're the
Yeah.
best. And then I also get some of the people always asking, why is Myrie's, still closed? And that's a sore subject. It is, because it's not enhancing our city, our downtown at all.
I had asked that be a retreat.
It's on the retreat topic.
Okay, thank you.
Good, I have something to, okay, good. And then, I had, one guy was asking, his name is Louis, so right on Frederick, so by Josephine's and Revival, that road there, he said that about 3 years ago, there was a survey on parking, and it was, he was just saying this, that it's 2-hour parking right now, and it was gonna move to 4 hours? Was that ever in the works? I guess not. Okay, yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm definitely not a public speaker, but last Saturday I was asked to help on the unveiling of in my neighborhood. They installed a small little library, and I think it's pretty awesome anytime a neighborhood or a community can install something that will help put some energy into your neighborhood, something different, whatnot. So I was shocked. So I showed up there, and there was probably 40, 50 people there. Oh yeah, fire trucks showed up for the kids, and it was a big event. There was sweets, treats, you name it. And so I read a really cool statement that somebody wrote, and I told them that I would share it here today in case somebody in the public who's watching or might watch on YouTube wants to install a free library in their neighborhood, that I can point them in the direction to do that. And literally it's just a swapping of books. You take one, leave one, and I was pretty impressed by it. The pressure washing downtown, man, I had a lot of phone calls. So thank you very much for doing that. That's a lot of hard work, and a lot of people are pretty grateful for your team doing that work. So.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead, Jay.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
So anyway, I don't know whether you know about this project or not. It started